right, here we go. OverDrive off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan.
I have to make a statement. Between friends, it's not supposed to go down like that. I like the competition. I like a little bit of some shackles, as they say, on a wager.
Okay.
I don't like seeing that happen to a guy. I don't think it's right, and it was just a perfect storm. Owen Wilson is electric.
Yeah, you guys are
electric.
You're off to a good start. You're off to a pretty good start.
We're 4-0.
Well, the way we do it is you're 2-0, I'm 0-2. All right, that's the way it works. You're 2-0, I'm 0-2, and you're on the clock tonight.
You can say whatever you want. If you add it all up, Owen Wilson is 4-0.
Yeah, you're off to a good start.
Well,
but I don't like seeing it. I'm
not concerned at all.
Oh, yeah. Really?
Not even an ounce of concern.
I'll go as far as to say, if we win tonight, your season could be over after week one.
What a ridiculous comment.
You're Danny Dimes.
I'm Danny Dimes. I'm Danny Dimes. I'm Danny Dimes.
He's Mac Jones all of a sudden now.
Grappler, put the poll out. If this guy loses tonight, is his season over?
Okay.
At 5-0,
throw it
that
up there if you
big
want.
Time trouble.
Listen,
man.
I wasn't intending on doing a read 2 minutes into the show, but I'll do a read.
Do the read.
You want me to do a read? I'll give you a read.
Give it to me.
All right, Something to Chew On is brought to you by our good friends at Boston Pizza. We love Boston Pizza. The best place for any family meal. Plus, for the month of September, kids eat free with minimum purchase when you dine in. So grab the kids and hustle into your local BP tonight. We're asking people, good or bad, which NFL market is overreacting most following their team's Week 1 performance? The answer is Owen Wilson. I knew you'd come in here.
OverDrive market.
The OverDrive market. What a stupid comment. If you lose tonight, your season's over. It's week 1. It's week 1, dude.
All I can see is Danny Dimes' face with his eyes somewhat crossed. You're concerning. Danny Dimes right now.
That was concerning. I have to admit, I was concerned with Daniel Dimes last night.
Yes, and I'm concerned with you. I'll tell you what, and how many times you kept saying to me last year, "Oh, dog, that's what you got to pay a quarterback." And I was like, $45 million? You're like, yeah, that's what you got to pay a guy like that. And they might get it back on track, but watching that, like through Danny Dimes' stretch as the Giants quarterback, that's just going to be one of the dents.
That's sickening last night. That is one of the worst performances. When you consider it's Sunday Night Football, under the lights, at home against your biggest rival, and you perform the way the Giants performed last night, they got skunked at home, man. That game was over like 5 minutes in. I was so annoyed. Were you not annoyed, Noodles?
Yeah.
I was waiting all night for that. And, it's week 1. There were some great games. And you get to the Sunday nighter, and I'm like, this is going to be a great ball game. Admittedly, I took the Giants plus 3.5. That probably didn't help the emotional swing. But I could not believe, A, how good the Cowboys pass rush was. You got to give credit where credit's due. That Cowboys defense showed up, and they looked electric. And Dak did what he was going to do. And, all good. Good for Mike McCarthy, good for the Cowboys. But that performance by Brian Dable, Danny Dimes, the kicker, the special teams, it was pathetic.
Nonsense.
Awful last night.
It was embarrassing. It was actually, and like you said, I saw you on Twitter saying, like, you got to switch the game or have something else. Like, it was for a Sunday night marquee matchup, that game, like, it was terrible.
Awful.
Like, I know, and I openly admit, because I went down to Real Sports with some friends and was watching, the San Fran game, was catching everything. It was awesome. I get home and I'm watching that nonsense. I was channel surfing.
Yeah.
Now I'm looking, there's nothing else on, there's baseball, whatever, but it's like, that's what you're supposed to watch.
Right.
Last night, you're supposed to be dialed in and watch that. It was nothing. It was nonsense. Terrible. Unless you're a Cowboys fan.
If you're a Cowboy fan, but even then, it's like routine. The game was over, man. It was 26-0 with 8 minutes to play in the second quarter. Like, it was honestly as if they were playing the Washington Generals. Like, if you're a Cowboy fan, it's great. You got to win, and you're absolutely punking one of your biggest rivals. But if you're just an innocent bystander looking for entertainment, it was terrible. And like Djokovic just swept the floor with Medvedev. Like Djokovic had won earlier. Like maybe push that match back. It was raining in New York. Could it not have rained enough where it delayed the U.S. Open men's final so we could flip over and watch?
You know who was watching that Giants game and who's playing a dangerous game, a really silly game? Your fella from Kansas City.
Oh, Kadarius Toney.
I don't know what that guy is.
Is he insane?
Is he insane?
He has lost his mind.
He went on Twitter and is like, he did the worst thing you could ever do when you have a game like he did. He started trolling everyone saying, oh, what, you're not going to comment on these guys? I could not believe my eyes when I saw that.
Craziness.
That is a crazy mistake.
Yes.
A crazy big mistake.
For those of you not familiar, Kadarius Toney, who should be playing somewhere in Europe the rest of this season.
You said Edmonton last
I did,
week.
but the Elks are red hot. They got another win over the weekend.
Another
I
win,
take that back.
yeah.
I take that back. The Elks are actually red hot. They've won 2 in a row at home. I'm kind of on their bandwagon. Kadarius Toney had one of the worst performances in everything the Giants were last night. That was Toney in terms of the way he performed on Thursday night. And he's a former Giant. They didn't turn on him, but they basically got rid of him. And he was chirping the Giants' performance.
No, he wasn't chirping the Giants. He was chirping everyone else for not getting on them.
For not getting on them. But effectively
thing.
saying the Giants stink, and why don't you point out that they stink too?
But he had deleted his Twitter,
Right.
so it was Instagram comments. Like, people weren't going to find those. Like, what are you doing? Like,
Crazy.
If you want to rebound, and maybe, you know what, credit to him. What if he's a rock star week 2 and never looks back and this was just a bump in the road?
Ooh.
But why shine a light on yourself for a full week until you play again? Like, that's the thing.
I don't know.
I thought it was nonsense. There were some great performances to your boy
man.
Jordan Love looked good. Like,
Thank
there
you,
was,
Noodles.
I thought Green Bay. I was watching that game. I thought Green Bay looked good.
I'll tell you
You know
what.
what? I gotta tell you what. I think we should do a new segment starting on Mondays. Just who won the weekend? Okay, Let's just do it impromptu right now. I'm gonna start because I have 2 people. Jordan Love from the Green Bay Packers won the weekend because I didn't expect that. He showed up, and all I could think about was Kansas City last year because that's all I've ever seen. And he was awful out there. And everybody said this guy looks like a stud, and what a great move by the Pack drafting him and letting him marinate on the sidelines like they did. An excellent move by Hazy B. And second, who won the weekend is Owen Wilson. Owen Wilson won the weekend. Go ahead, Hazy B. You can select 2 people who won the weekend, 2 different things. It could be a passing game, a whole team, a defense. Go ahead.
Well, I will say I think Jordan Love is clearly one, but I'll give that to you. I'm going to go with Tua. You mentioned Tua. Tua came off a really difficult season last year where and let's be clear, the health concerns are not gone because of what he did yesterday. He threw for 466 yards yesterday. That throw he made on 3rd and 10 late to Tyreek Hill was absolutely phenomenal, and it made me walk away, and I don't think this is an overreaction. If he's healthy, the Dolphins are a legit Super Bowl contending team. Mike McDaniel is one of the goofier head coaches in history. But he's a wizard. He's a wizard, and he calls up plays, and Tyreek Hill has not slowed down. Jalen Waddle is a stud. Tua, he is so accurate. He's a baller. He's a winner if he stays healthy. And considering the year he had last year with his health, for him to go on the road to the Chargers and perform like that, I think you got to give full credit. And you know who else I'm going to throw a shout-out to? Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy.
That's where I was going to go.
Remember, sorry, Noodles, but remember the last time we saw him, he blew his arm out. He basically, I don't know if he had Tommy John, but he basically needed Tommy John.
Dude, people still call him Mr. Irrelevant.
Listen, he's setting records, man. All he does is win and throw touchdowns. Yes, and to go into Pittsburgh and perform the way he performed. Now, the Steelers were terrible. Kenny Pickett was awful, but Purdy coming off what I heard was not a great camp. Kind of noise around the Niners. Bosa got in late. They got to go against the grain in terms of going to the East Coast. They're playing at 10 Pacific time. For him to perform and win like that at Pittsburgh, that's big for Purdy.
All right. Well, you know what? I agree. I watched that game. San Francisco's, they're legit.
They are legit.
They are
very
rock
legit.
stars.
Very legit.
So I'll go with 2. reluctantly one is a guy that I'm not a huge fan of, Baker Mayfield.
Ooh, good point, though, Noodles. Baker got a win in Minnesota. That's big.
He got a win.
You what, that son of a you-know-what on the other end.
Kirk Cousins.
No, don't even say his name.
That's my guy.
That's your guy.
Kirk Cousins. He cost us one team in the elimination pool.
We're down one tick.
I'm never saying his name again.
Yeah, that's my guy, and they had. But you see, he was frustrated. He got picked right on that goal line, and then he had at 10-10. They had another mess, which he was pissed off. But the other guy is Deshaun. I mean, you know what?
They won. They won big too. I mean, that Joe Burrow. Was he awful yesterday?
He got pulled,
awful,
right?
Yeah, he
got the gate.
He looks like he's injured. He was injured through camp, but for him to sign the biggest contract in NFL history and to go out, I think he threw for 86 yards.
Dude, he was pretty casual afterwards too. He was like, and I don't really know what you're supposed to say after a performance like that. I've never been a fan of those divisional games with those teams. They just seem to be wet and yucky and mucky and grind it out. But he was just like, it wasn't very good, which is kind of something that's cool about him because he's like, but it was like Rodgers a couple years ago, and he was like, everyone just relax a little bit, and then he went out and went on a tear. But it was awful. I had to turn that game off. I'm like, this is garbage.
Terrible.
It
was terrible.
So whoever was doing the game, I think it was Ian Eagle or whoever was with him, said there's $500 million worth of quarterbacks on the field right now, and it was 10.
They were throwing ducks, man. Even Watson was throwing ducks. Like there was some brutal quarterback play. But a
win's a win. That's the two. And I could throw in Stafford there too. Like there was some.
That's a big
there were
one
some good
too.
performances too. But I looked at it yesterday, and there were some new faces, new teams, and people are excited. But this is over. So conversely, do we want to do maybe a two-pack quickly, like who lost the weekend?
Well,
Kadarius Toney is for sure.
Kadarius Toney is at the top of the list.
Danny Dimes too.
I think, I'll jump in front here and say on the opposite side of Jordan Love and the Packers, if you're the Bears and you're Bears fans, you have been watching Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers terrorize you for 30 years. You finally think you got a guy in Justin Fields, and Jordan Love was so much better than him yesterday at Soldier Field. That has to be sickening. You're leaving there thinking, finally the Packers are done. Finally, they're going to take a step back. Finally, we have a better quarterback. And Jordan Love was substantially better than Justin Fields. And that has got to be sickening if you're a Bears fan. Sickening if you're a Bears fan. But
the Giants.
Yes.
The Giants are like, you can throw in Pittsburgh right with them the way they got dummied by San Fran. But the Giants to lose 40 Cobb. 40 Cobb at home on Sunday Night Football?
That's
Give
crazy.
me a break.
That
That's
looked
disgusting.
like Alabama playing Eastern Tennessee State week 1, and the spread was like 41.5. That's what it looked like, and you don't see that generally in the NFL. That was ugly. That was ugly. All right. Well, listen, we got a lot to get into today because we got a big one tonight. You know what sticks out, too, in the NFL? Kansas City lost, Cincinnati lost, the Chargers lost. The Steelers, who I think some expected could be a playoff team this year, they lost. And one of the Bills or Jets are losing tonight. So there's going to be 4 or 5 monsters in the AFC starting 0-1. Luke Willson will join us in studio just after 5 o'clock. Dave Naylor's down there. He was at the game last night. He'll be there tonight. The Nail Gun coming up in a couple of hours. The Rangers are in town. The Jays did their part, right? They did what they were supposed to do. They swept the Royals. And that's a great way to start a 10-game homestand. And now this is the biggest series, most anticipated series in years with Texas in town. And I'm sure you guys heard Kiermaier after the game last night on the field. And he was playing up the crowd. He grabbed the mic, and it was a surround sound mic, and he was talking about the aura around the team. And he said, "Are you guys ready for October? Because we're going there." He basically called his shot. He basically went Messier and guaranteed the Jays are going to the playoffs.
He didn't do that.
He effectively did that.
He was trying to get the this is something.
He didn't do that. He didn't do that. He didn't say we're going to. Are you ready for October? We're going to October.
Did
he not say that?
Do we have the quote?
I think there's a copyright issue.
Yeah,
we're not allowed
is,
to really.
Obviously.
Yeah, of course there is.
What he was trying to say is, we're trying to go somewhere, and we need you guys with us. We're going there. You got to help us.
How is that not a guarantee?
No, you're
How is
trying
that
to
not a
make it
guarantee?
Messier. You're trying to make it Messier. It wasn't. He basically said, let's get to the promised land together. We need you. I loved every second of it.
I loved it too. But what I'm saying is, to me, it sounded like, hey, buckle up. Like, we know what we're doing here. We are uber confident. Because he said, we've been building towards September all year. Right?
Okay,
And
but
then-
I'm just not going to turn this into a thing where
I will.
Kiermaier called his shot, and if they don't get there, what about Kiermaier? See, that's the negativity in the host that you always do.
Oh, I
You
think
try
it's
to-
a positive thing. See,
No,
it's funny. You
just,
look at it that
let's
way.
just take it as a positive. He said, let's get to it. Let's get there
that's right.
together.
That's right.
Yes.
I'm not negative about this. I'm saying, see, you look at it as you were the one that brought up the idea they would skid off the tracks and miss. I think they keep flying, and then when they get there, Kiermaier looks even cooler in the end. Then Kiermaier comes out, takes the mic before the wild card game, although they're likely to start on the road, and says, I told you it's coming.
Okay.
I told you we're getting there. Thanks to everyone. I called it back on September 10th.
Let me just clarify one thing. I did not say they were going to skid off the tracks.
Well, you went
But they've
there,
been
though.
playing against the Durham Bulls the last
They
week
have
and a half.
been. They have
That
been.
guy yesterday, he was hitting the mascot. He was hitting the mascot.
It was nonsense.
That lefty,
Nonsense.
he was like, no, I'm good. Don't come out here. At the next one, it hit the mascot. Then he's like, no, I'm good. And he did it 2 more times.
I saw so many people tweet out yesterday, like reaching back to when they started watching baseball. Like, I swear I saw one guy saying, I've been watching since Mickey Mantle. I've never seen that before. Like, we got Griff coming up. Griff tweeted out saying he's been like involved in the sport since 1977. He's never seen 3 wild pitches in a row. And those were not even wild. Like, those were
nonsense.
Aggressively
it was
awful.
hit the mascot.
Yeah, it was like, it was wild what was going on down there yesterday. And that set the Jays up to find a way to win a ball game.
Yeah, he was nuclear louche.
Yeah, he
That's
was.
what he was.
3 in
It
a
was
row.
ridiculous. But you know what? The Jays will take the wins. Climbed above Seattle, I
That's
believe.
right.
So
That's
they're
another
just right
thing.
in.
That's right.
Yeah.
They're not just fighting with Texas here, man. Seattle's come back to earth a little bit.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
the Jays are now in the second wild card. So if the wild card were to begin tonight, they'd actually be heading down to the Trop, which is pretty wild. Not something I think people necessarily want to see happen.
I don't know if you want to see that exactly, but you know what? You got to make it there. That's the focus right now. And Kiermaier called his shot. He's
that's
Messier.
Right. I think he went Messier yesterday. That was my interpretation.
I don't think he
Was
did, but I
Messier.
think you're starting something, and it's going to catch fire. You watch.
No,
like
it's
he's
just
going to
like
get asked
Aaron.
about
It's
it.
just
It's
like
gone.
Aaron when
He
she
should.
grabbed your hand and said, Hazy B, let's go to the promised land. Let's make a family together. And you guys held hands and you went there together.
Right.
That's what Kiermaier was saying to the fans.
Okay,
Yeah.
I have no idea how that analogy matches up, really, other than to suggest that that would be a guarantee that we were about to, right? Like,
Yeah.
come together and have a family. I can't even go down that path because it does not connect with the
Go
sports
to the
world.
promised land together. Let's
Yeah.
do it together. We need your help. That's like he didn't call it wasn't Messier like.
Do you think the players really feel like they need the help of the fans? Like, you guys were
I
former
don't know.
pro
It
athletes.
seemed like a jam-packed ballpark all weekend, wasn't it?
Actually, it was a little bit lighter than some people. Like on Friday night, I think there were only 27,000 or something, 30 grand. It looked good over the weekend. Like, it looked good yesterday. I would expect a packed house this week. You got 4 against Texas, then 3 against the Sox on the weekend.
Why? There's not rumblings of I'm
No,
not
no,
sure
no.
about that crowd, is there?
No, not like, wow, it's light. But I think they've been selling out basically all year. They've done a really good job of getting people in the park. And I think the expectation was into September, in a pennant race, Kiermaier giving guarantees, people would be, down there doing, basically stuffing the place. And I'm not sure that was exactly the case. But I saw someone post like statistics on what these 3 games are worth, like the postseason probabilities, which are not always something you take to the bank. Clearly,
Right.
talked to a Leaf fan when it was 4-1 with 11 minutes to go. But the Jays' postseason probabilities based upon the Texas series. If Texas sweeps, the Jays are still at 37% chance of making it. If Texas wins 3 of 4, the Jays are still 59% chance of making it. If they split the series, the Jays are at 80%. The Jays win 3 of 4, they're at 97%. And if they sweep the 4-game series, They're 99.3%. Yeah, exactly.
Has Texas got it back on the tracks at all?
Over the weekend, a little bit. And you're going to see Scherzer
they were playing
tomorrow.
Oakland, weren't they?
Exactly. But the Jays are playing Kansas City. The Jays just played Oakland. They just played Colorado. I mean,
they played that pitcher who was trying to hit the mascot. Like, that's
right.
what they had. You know, you got to play who's in front of you. But I think it'll be a good series. But you're saying now it's the lock of the century if they can get 3 out of 4 or 4 out of 4 now.
I think so.
How many games are left? It's 20.
They got 19 left.
19.
I think of this series, and if a guy's dialed in and doing what he's supposed to do and not another world apart, it's like this series reeks of a Manoah performance. But it's sad that he's not even a part of the equation.
And he's not going to be, right?
He's not even a part of a AAA equation.
No, I don't think we see him again. I'm not sure he's in front of a camera at any point the rest of this season. What's the point now? AAA season's almost over. The MLB season is over effectively. I mean, he's not going to rejoin the rotation.
But you know that what the buildup would be if he was getting the ball tonight to kind of set the tone.
Right.
In the past couple of years, the series, Yankee Stadium, first game, it seemed like he got the ball and it was like, let's go. And the guy's not nowhere to be found. It's weird. And it's disappointing.
It is. It's the wildest story of the year. There's nothing that can compete with this. Like, the individual story of Alek Manoah is unlike anything I've ever seen. And I can't believe he's in the position he's in. And we hope everything's all good with him, but we don't really know. And even when he was struggling earlier in the year, no one was thinking there was a chance this guy wasn't going to get it back on the rails. And then when he got sent to the Florida Complex League, it was like, nah, he's still going to figure it out. Now, I don't know, man. I legitimately, and this isn't some hot take or me trying to get crazy. I'm rooting for the guy, but I don't know if he pitches again in the major leagues. I don't know if he's a Blue Jay again. This is such a massive fall from grace. It's difficult to even put into perspective and really project what's going to happen.
When it happened early on, everybody was like, well, it happened to Holiday. And, there was a bunch of excuses early on, and the guy was pitching in a complex somewhere in Florida.
Right.
Now, all of a sudden, I don't know of anybody who's a believer is going this guy, there's a chance he's going to get it back on the rails. Now, again, we're not privy to the story.
Noodles, I think he went down and kind of had a standard,
minor league stint.
A minor league stint where he worked on his game and his craft.
He changed his approach, his delivery, exactly. Manoah, there's no chatter about that. It seems like something else is on the docket. And maybe he just needs to get away and he resets and we see him in February or March and he shows up at camp, he looks great, pitches great, and the rest is history. The Jays are probably hoping for that. But whatever the Jays do this offseason with that rotation, it will tell us, they will tell us how they feel about the likelihood he's a part of their team.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and this is one of the biggest. Now, this is his third year, right? But this would be his sophomore year, technically, correct?
Yeah,
this is one of the biggest sophomore jinxes you can think about. Jim Carrey, the goalie, I think, was another one of them. That's what Jim Carrey won awards, Rookie of the Year and stuff, and then Hockey News couldn't find him 3 years later. You hope this doesn't happen to Manoah. The guy was in the All-Star game last year, mic'd up.
Yeah, opening day, game 1 of the wild card, the whole 9.
Man, oh, man.
Yeah, it's not a good scene.
No.
Jays Rangers tonight. Richard Griffin will join us later in the hour. His take on the weekend, his take on what Kiermaier had to say, his take on the matchup against Texas moving forward. Luke Willson in studio still to come as well. Chris Johnston will join us. We got a new Canadian captain. We'll tell you about that. We'll get into it. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, Overdrive continues. Brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line of the final score. Richard Griffin later this hour. Jays Rangers tonight. Luke Willson in studio at 5. Jets Bills tonight down in New York. I should check to make sure there's no Giants fans still kicking around that stadium. Just in the fetal position somewhere. Go find them and kick them out.
I spoke with a Giants fan today. I'm not sure if you guys are privy to this, but the guy who lives in Edmonton with the fading hair is a huge Giants fan.
Is that right?
God, we might have to. If we got a 15 little segment, we might have to call him.
Yeah,
why not?
That's not good, man. That's not good. The Grappler's a big Giant fan. He said,
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. He loves the Giants. He is very concerned after week 1.
Well, that would have been like, if you're a huge fan of that, like this Grappler on the mic, like, would he just been, was it nonsense? Like, you just losing it, like, as a fan?
No, I mean, listen. Not that I would have said this on air, but I was low on them heading into the season, anyways. Last year was
dude. That is such a
that's overreaction Monday, right?
No, listen. When Daniel Jones was given a $40 million per year contract, I was screaming. He had no business being given that deal. Love Brian Daboll, but no, heading into that game.
But Grappler, the Hazy B says that's what you got to pay a guy like. That's right out of his mouth.
That's what you
got to pay a guy like.
Paid.
No,
I don't.
And I understand that's the going rate for quarterbacks right now, but it never seemed like he was going to be the answer. And for me, like, I would love for this team just to fall apart, bottom out, draft a big QB. Maybe they're getting Caleb Williams.
Okay,
Who
so
knows?
why is there more years attached to Danny Dimes' contract?
You know why?
No idea.
Because they Grappler, they have stunk for like a decade almost.
Thank you. I know.
And they bottomed out and they took Danny Dimes, 6th overall, I believe.
No
it
kidding.
Was. And
But
now
you know what the
they're committed to him.
overreaction is? The overreaction is winning a playoff game last year in Minnesota and said, oh, maybe this kid from Duke is actually the real deal and can take us to the promised land, Hazy B. But you know what the answer is? Wrong.
Well, listen, I don't think he's ever going to be a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. I'm granting you that. But Joe Burrow was awful yesterday. Kenny Pickett was terrible at home. Geno Smith was terrible in Seattle. Like, there were other guys who had awful weeks, and it's week 1, and you know we'll see what comes of it.
Of all of those guys you just mentioned, including the kid in Pittsburgh who's in his second year, who do you have the least most confidence in rebounding? It's probably Danny Dimes.
It might be
least,
Danny. The
least confident.
The least most confidence. Probably Danny Dimes or Kenny Pickett.
That's right.
I mean,
That's
Pickett's
right.
a kid. You exclude him. But if you're talking Danny Dimes, Geno Smith, or Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes, obviously it's not going to be one of those two guys. So, yeah, it's probably Danny Dimes. I would be concerned. I'm not denying that, but I'm not going to suggest that their season's over and the guy can't bounce back and be better than he was last night. Last night was a perfect storm of everything going against them. It was a mess. And as a result, Cowboys are 1-0, Giants are 0-1. What are you going to do?
That was an ass kicking.
That was a
That's the
beatdown.
problem.
What a comment from the Grappler too. I had
he knew they were terrible.
That was a fan
What a
comment going.
greasy
I knew they were going to
comment.
suck this
now
year
they're in on
anyway.
Caleb Williams. Now they're tanking for Caleb Williams.
I mean, listen, if you want my glass half full perspective, in 07 when they beat the Patriots for the first time, I'm pretty sure they lost their first 2 weeks by a combined 60 points, started the year 0-2, and then Eli Manning went and led them on the most unlikely of Super Bowl runs in NFL history.
All right, maybe
there's
Danny
your glass
Dimes
half
will
full
do that.
perspective.
Maybe Danny Dimes can supply that. See what the odds are of Danny Dimes for MVP and the Giants winning a Super Bowl. See if you can find that on FanDuel. And
That's a 1,000,000 to 1
it's
right
got to
now.
be a wild parlay. Danny Dimes MVP, Giants Super Bowl. What would that be paying? Reach out to FanDuel and see if you can find that.
Somebody will sprinkle $100 on that and make $1,000,000 if that happens.
Oh,
That's what it is.
No one's making that bet today. Nobody's
No.
making that bet.
You know what was awkward, guys, for me to see? Tommy Brady looked a little awkward in New England. I don't know why.
That
it
shirt
looked
was like
weird
a
from-
boy's small.
Yeah, they're
I don't
like-
know if he was hitting the vodkas in the box, but it was all.
It was just a weird setup.
It was
there.
a
Like,
weird vibe. What he had
running
cooking
down the
yesterday.
field, throwing a fake ball into the crowd, too.
Well, and it was a weird pump noodles. I thought he
Yeah.
double stepped and almost blew a wheel.
I'm telling you, I think he was into Grandpa's coffee medicine.
yeah,
out
he
there
might
with
have
Bobby
been.
Kraft.
Him and Bobby were in one, but it's like it was almost like he said to a fan, "Give me that jersey. I'm going to put it on."
Yeah.
Like it was way too small for him as a half shirt. Like
I
it was
know.
just so awkward.
It was.
Then he
It
had
was-
the interview with Tracy Wolfson, and I was like, "Is that you, Tommy? Like, what are you talking?" It was
He
a
was in
weird.
one.
I'm telling you, he had to be into something.
He almost had a Joe Namath situation.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
that's the most famous. Like Joe Namath, Susie Kolber.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
That was the
On
saddest
so many
thing I've
levels.
ever
That's
seen.
wild,
It is
man.
because
that is
yeah,
the most wild. Like someone should have gone to him. We've been down this road and said, "Joe, you can't go on, right? And you
Yeah.
can't do it." I don't think Brady was at that
Not
capacity.
even close.
But
Not
Brady,
even
I'm
close.
with you, though. The shirt was strange. The vibe. Like, that was his pregame routine. He used to run out to the end zone, do the fist
Dude, I was
pump.
thrown off by seeing the gray beard and the not clean shaven. I was like, I'd never.
He's getting
It was
up there.
just all of it was combined was a weird vibe, dude.
He's getting up there.
But you have to have somebody close to cut the mic. Like, Namath should have been a mic. Like, somebody should have tackled him.
No one should have allowed, and Joe Namath never should have been close to a microphone.
Right.
That was, I think, on a Monday night in New York, much like tonight. You have the odds for Danny Dimes MVP and the Giants to win a Super Bowl?
Yes, courtesy of our friends at FanDuel, a combined plus 20,000 for the Giants to win the Super Bowl and Daniel Jones to win 2023 NFL MVP. That actually seems low, doesn't it?
I was going to say that should be off the board almost. Like it's
Why is the
with-
guy's name Danny Dimes? Like, I think I've asked you. He's number 8.
Yeah,
Like, why is it Danny Dimes?
I guess he throws dimes. Yeah,
throws dimes.
Yeah, the belief is that he throws dimes. Now, they happen to be to the opposition, which is a little bit concerning. But, yeah, there you go. Plus 20,000, a little sprinkle on that parlay. Danny
Would the
Dimes
Grappler
and the
put
Giants.
$100 on that? Would somebody put $100 on that right now just to be like, why not? I
Why
might.
not?
It's one of those bets
Why
you make,
not?
like maybe just throw a couple bucks on it and you never
pay
know.
off,
What do you have
man.
to lose?
That'll pay off a lot of money. All right, Richard Griffin coming up. He was at the park all weekend. His take on Jays Kansas City. His take on Jays Rangers starting tonight. And Luke Willson still to come. Chris Johnston back on the show, too. CJ's back as Quinn Hughes has been announced as the 15th captain in Vancouver Canucks history. So we'll get into that more. Still to come with CJ a little bit later this afternoon. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, big 4-game series starting tonight down at the Dome. Jays, Rangers, we've had this circled for well over a month. The Jays are not only competing with Texas for a wild card spot, they happen to be ahead of Seattle at this point as well. But this is as big as it gets, as big as it gets. You got Dane Dunning on the mound for the Rangers, Chris Bassett on the mound for the Jays. The Jays are coming off a sweep of the Kansas City Royals, and it's going to be cooking down at the park tonight. Beautiful night. Should be dome open. Right? It has to be mandatory dome open tonight, I would think.
You think? It's a little chilly, I thought. I don't know.
I don't know, man. If it's over 15 degrees, even over 12 or 13, it should
it's
be open.
boiling outside.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day today. Really, really nice day today. It might cool down a little tomorrow and Wednesday, but you got to have dome open tonight. You know him from griffsthepitch.com, Exit Philosophy Podcast. Here's our buddy Richard Griffin. How you doing, Griff?
Hey, guys, I'm good. How are you?
We're doing pretty well. Can you give us your take? I'm sure you heard what Kiermaier said after the game yesterday, where he was speaking with the crowd. I took that.
No. Give him both options. Give him both
Let him
options.
answer. Let him answer.
I will. My interpretation was Kiermaier was giving a guarantee the Jays are going to the playoffs. O took it as they need the fans' help to get to the playoffs, but it was not a guarantee. How did you interpret that comment?
Well, first of all, I think Kevin Kiermaier is one of the smart guys in this game, and it's not like Will Ferrell streaking the quad in old school. This guy knows exactly what he's doing. I remember when he just signed the contract with the Jays, 1-year deal, and he sent out a video with his 2 cute kids wearing Blue Jays gear, and he sang the national anthem. Kevin sang the national anthem and said, "This is the greatest anthem ever." This guy knows exactly what he's doing. He sets the bar low for himself in terms of, he said he wanted to be the best 9-hole hitter in baseball, and he's one of them right now. He said he didn't care if he hit a home run or not. He hit a big one the other day. So he set the bar low. He clears it every night, and now he looks ahead, and he sees what's coming up. He sees 4 games against the Texas Rangers, and if they split, I think they're pretty much still going to the postseason because – you look at the schedule down the road, and I'm sure he has, but Texas and Seattle are playing 7 times in the last 10 games.
Oh.
So somebody's got to lose those games, and those are 2 of the teams that they're battling. So there's 7 losses to be split up between the 2 teams. So Kevin looks at that and goes, hey, this is a good time. It's like firing a manager or a coach going into an easy stretch of games because you want the guy to succeed. And to me, this is him looking ahead, and he's not asking for the help of the fans because, he comes from Tampa Bay where there were no fans. So when he goes on the road and he sees the stands packed with Blue Jays fans, like he's spoiled rotten right now by Blue Jays fans. So he's just bringing them along for the ride. He knows he can see that if the Jays play respectable ball at all down the stretch, that they've got a great chance of being there, and he's playing his cards.
Okay.
How do you think they stack up, Griff? I mean, they've been playing terrible opponents, which I guess you could say it was kind of needed to get on the roll that they're on. The schedule is what it is, but do you think they can kind of – that's what they needed to put it all together at such a critical time in a critical series?
Well, heading into that 5-series stretch with the losing teams, and they played 4 of the 5 worst teams in baseball during that stretch. But heading into those 15 games, Griff the pitch said that they had to be 10-5, and that's exactly what they were. But somehow 10-5, even in hindsight, looks very disappointing. But they had the serendipity of having the injuries to their key players, to Bo and Chapman and Eric Swanson and Danny Jansen, at a period where they could bring those Buffalo kids in and still win 10 out of 15 games. Now, going down the stretch, they definitely need Bo. They definitely need Vlad. Springer has already showed that he's about to step up, and Bo carried them last September. So in terms of are they in position to do something special, I think they're in position to get to October and still be playing. And beyond that, their pitching staff is going to have to carry them. I heard you guys earlier talking about Manoah. I think if Barrios and Kikuchi had not stepped up, they would not even be in this situation right now. The Blue Jays would not, because they thought they would have to rely on Manoah so much. And then it turned out those other 2 guys who had bad seasons in 2022 have stepped up and really saved the season.
What is your projection now for Manoah at this point, Griff? Like, what do you this time next year? What do you think we're talking about when it comes to Alek Manoah?
Well, I did a feature. I did a column on him when he was just coming back, or when he had been sent down to the complex, and he responded, and we talked, and we had a great chat. I've tried to reach out to him twice since he first did not report to Buffalo, and he has not responded. So he's gone dark by himself, unless the club has told him not to talk to anyone. But I don't see it as the end of his career. I see it as like a giant spot on the radar. It's not a blip, but I can see him at 25 years old regaining what he's lost, because he was that good for 2 seasons, and even going back to West Virginia and even going back to the Cape Cod League. So he has it in him. I think he just has to straighten out some things. I'm not sure what kind of advice he got when he didn't report to Buffalo. And he does have time in his career to straighten it back out. And I think that, with Ryu being a free agent after this season, they're going to need a 5th starter. And he will be in that mix. And, if he can straighten out his issues off the field, I think he's got a chance to get back.
What did he lose, Griff? Like they just seemed like it went up in smoke. Like it just was like he's playing in all-star games, and then it's just up in smoke and gone.
Yeah, there was signs of, and I'll say immaturity before his success. So I'm not sure what his support system, how supportive they were during this time of turmoil. But I think that those are the issues that he's got to get past. Maybe it was too much too soon. Maybe he had too many endorsement deals. I mean, it's so odd to see him and Springer doing those commercials on TV every game. And
it is weird.
You'd think somebody at that company would say, hey, let's get somebody else and reshoot a commercial. But, I think he's, it is a difficult issue, and I'm sure none of us understand what he had gone through, what the background of those issues are. But hopefully he'll be able to figure it out and come to spring training next year and give it his best effort.
Talking about another young player, is what do you make of Davis Schneider? And is he the real deal, or is he going to come back down to earth, or where are you at with him?
Davis Schneider, to me, is not the real deal. I think defensively, you see in the 8th and 9th innings, when the Jays have a lead, they find a way to replace him, to pinch run, or to always throw Varsho out in the outfield, bring Whit Merrifield in, or put Kevin Biggio out at second base. So he needs to work on his defense. I think I've seen a lot of players come up and make a great first impression. I think you remember Carlos Delgado coming up and having 2 great months at the beginning of his career, and then having to go back to the minor leagues because people caught up with him. And you can see when you start 9 for 13, as he did in the Red Sox series at Fenway, it's kind of hard for your numbers to drop off dramatically in 20 games. So I think that he's far from the real deal, but he's got a chance to be a useful player down the stretch and moving forward in his career. But I don't think he'll be the kind of player that you build a team around.
With Richard Griffin, Jays Rangers tonight, 4-game series starting down at the Dome. You mentioned Springer a few moments ago, Griff, and he's really starting to come on. And whenever he does, especially in September, you look back on his career in Houston and World Series MVP, and the idea that they gave him all that money, biggest contract in franchise history.
That's why they got him, Hayes.
With the anticipation of September and October, right? April, May, June, July, August, completely irrelevant as long as you show up in September. Do you buy into that logic and that narrative that if George keeps cooking like this, they get into the playoffs and he does what he can in October, then basically everything else is irrelevant at that point?
I do. I think that's the guy that's the real leader by example on the field because, as you said, he's done it. He's been there. He's been a World Series MVP, and there's not a lot of those going around, and the Jays have one. And I do believe that some of the players following him in that batting order, and John Schneider's already said that he's guaranteed George face-to-face that he's the leadoff guy the rest of the year. And that's the only thing that makes any sense. And having Bo batting second and Vlad batting third, I asked John Schneider, you're never going to put somebody between Bo and Vlad, are you? Because that's the swagger of this team, is having those two guys following Springer. And you can't break them up because late in games you want other teams to be thinking, well, Vlad's behind Bo, we better pitch to him and let her rip at that point. But those two guys following George, everyone has looked to him when he's been healthy, and he's been healthy this year as the leader of that team on and off the field, but mostly by example. And, that's why they signed him for the month of September, for the month of October, and we'll just have to wait and see how far it can take him.
Bichette looked good over the weekend. He's really looked good since he returned for the most part. I think there'll be spot duty, playing short, some DH. They'll probably give him some days off. I'm curious, though, how much you can go down that road with only 19 games to go here and you're fighting for your playoff lives. Like, do you just floor it with Bichette, or do you continue to kind of handle with care the rest of the way?
Well, I think the handle with care scenario is overrated, and that's how those phony baloney high-performance guys keep their jobs.
Right.
You go in. But to me, 19 games left, and you guys, I mean, O-Dog, you guys have been on the ice, on the field. When it's go time, you got to go. And when Bo came back and played shortstop and had a great game and then sits the next day, you're going, what the hell is going on? And then he DHs, and he needs to be on the field. He needs to be a shortstop. Ernie Clement can't make the throw from the hole. And if you're gonna go for it, you got to go for it all in. You got to push all in, and Bo is part of that.
The website is griffsthepitch.com. The podcast is Exit Philosophy. He is Richard Griffin. We love having you on, Griff. Enjoy the series. We'll do it again soon. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Anytime.
There he is, Richard Griffin.
Man, he knows his stuff.
Griff's been covering this game for a long time. We didn't ask him about the 3 wild pitches, actually. We referenced it earlier, his tweet, that he hadn't seen it his whole life.
I'll tell you what Griff knows. Griff knows who's been in the trenches.
Yes.
Then you guys, I mean, O-Dog, you guys have been on the ice, on the field.
You got excluded there a little bit, Noodles.
Exactly.
Yeah, there you go. I
guys,
like
you
hearing
forgot my
that.
name. That's all.
Welcome to the dark side, buddy.
No, it's just a great note from Griff.
Yeah, Griff knows. Griff's a man of integrity, and Griff,
Yeah.
I think, is feeling pretty good about where the Jays are at. I think most people are. Listen, it can turn quickly. This team's been remarkably inconsistent all year, and right when you start to buy in, they drag you out again, and you start to really hate on the team, quite frankly. But if they can take care of this series, at a minimum, you take 2 of 4. But if you can get 3 of 4, I think 4 of 4 is probably greedy. But you take 3 of 4 or a split here, you're walking out feeling very good.
Dude, just get that
Very
Texas
good.
range of energy in that ballpark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, take care of business, right?
Yeah.
It starts with a win tonight. You get on the board tonight, you're feeling good. The ball's going to be rolling downhill from there.
Just have Rugnet Odor throw out the first pitch.
Can you imagine the vibe down there if the Jays welcomed Rugnet Odor
Be awesome.
for the ceremonial first pitch?
I think it would be great. It would fire everyone up.
Yeah, it would. Yep, people would be fired up. There's no question about that. All right, Luke Willson coming up in the next hour. Chris Johnston still to come. Dave Naylor live from New York. Jets Bills tonight, Monday Night Football right here on TSN.